Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm here giving you a tutorial on a product made by Blue Knight Rubber Stamps. This is the stamp called Away in a Manger, and I'm going to demonstrate a spotlight technique that uses heat embossing and distress ink. This is what the stamp looks like. It comes on a laminated card, and you can color it or you can use markers, you can use ink from your stamp. However you would like to do it. I'm using this archival ink, it's espresso color, for my first layer, and I'm going over the entire stamp with the archival ink. I'm using cream colored paper, which is more like a linen style paper than it is actually, and it is going to hopefully make the overall effect seem to be aged. I'm using my stamp positioning tool so that I can double stamp, triple stamp, stamp it as many times as I need to get that dark image imprint that I'm looking for. Now I have some vintage photo distress ink. I'm going around the corners of the image and I am giving it a nice dark edge. And this will definitely help it to look vintage. And you can do other things. You can take your distressed edger around the edge if you want as well. Now I'm going over it with Versamark, which is a sticky ink that's clear, and I'm going to emboss the entire panel. So I have some white, it's actually clear embossing powder, not white, clear, and I'm going to heat emboss it. So it's going to make it look pretty shiny, but also make it look like a photograph. So that's my first card. I'm going to use craft cardstock, and I put the panel on a dark brown base, and I put that base and the panel right on top of the craft card base. So that's one of the cards that I made. Here's a picture of it. You can see that one is actually on a white card base, but it's still the same. Now, the only thing I'm going to do differently this time is the way that I do a spotlight technique. So I've got the ground espresso archival ink, and I'm stamping the entire red rubber stamp. Blue Knight rubber stamps are a deeply etched red rubber stamp, so you're going to get an extremely high level of detail. And I'm using my MISTI without the foam because it's a red rubber stamp, and I'm just stamping it one time on white cardstock. Now I'm taking the vintage photo distress ink, going all the way around the panel edges with a sponge dauber. And like I said, you can distress this many different ways. You can use a distressed edger if you'd like. I do have a panel that I made with a distressed edger. But what I'm doing is I'm actually going to create a spotlight so that it looks as if the light from the window is shining down on the manger. And again, this is the style of vintage, the style of distress, and it's not hard to do, obviously, because it's ink blending the entire panel, but it is pretty dramatic, I think, as far as the way it looks whenever it is complete. You just want to think about it ahead of time. Where do you want that beam of light to be coming down? I like it to be wide coming down from the window. Um, I think it, more realistically would portray how the light would shine through the window. Going back in with my Versamark ink, which is a clear embossing ink, over the entire panel and making sure that it's good and sticky all the way around, but leaving that center area without any ink at all of the distress ink. This is clear embossing powder, and we're just going to go ahead and dump that over the entire panel, make sure it's thoroughly covered, and then we will go ahead and heat emboss that with our heat gun. And I did fast forward this a little bit for the sake of time because it's a pretty simple technique and it doesn't take a lot of explanation. And I'm actually not going to show you me heat embossing it the whole way through because that would take a lot of time, but just enough so that you get the idea of how I do this. So I'm going to use some double back tape, which is um, temporary, to keep that panel still so that I can heat emboss it without it blowing away. Once I'm done heat embossing this, I am adhering it to a panel that is 4 by 5 1/4, and then that panel is a craft color cardstock, and then the craft panel I will adhere to a card base that is white, and that is an A2 card base, size 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm just using some wet glue to adhere this down to the card base. And it makes a really nice Christmas card, vintage inspired, of course. It's not colored, and it's definitely reminds you of a sepia type photo. And I'm going to show you a couple other ones that I made with similar techniques, and you can see the variations depending on the paper that I used and the ink, the amount of ink that I blended. I'm going to slow this down to normal speed so you can get a good look at all of these cards that I created. The sentiment says, "Come, let us celebrate the birth of Christ." It is from a sentiment set from Blue Knight Rubber Stamps called "Come, Let Us Adore Him." It has really great sentiments for Christmas. This one I rounded the corners and I used foam adhesive to prop it up a little bit. And I also crinkled some of my paper in an effort to make it look vintage. So some of these cards look a little wrinkled, but that was part of the effect that I was going for on some of them. And some of them have distressed edges, some of them have rounded edges, different mats of white, tan, dark brown. This is another card that I created with this stamp, and I didn't do a video on it because it's basically colored pencils. That's how I created this card, but I did leave sort of a spotlight area shining through the night window there, where you can see that it's not the same color. It's got like the white kind of shining the light on the manger. That was left like that on purpose because we wanted to spotlight the manger and baby Jesus. So hopefully you're getting a jump on some of your Christmas cards. I'm doing much better this year than I have in the past. Thanks to all my subscribers for tuning in again to watch one of my videos. Um, Thanks to Blue Knight Rubber Stamps for allowing me to be on their design team. I only have 1 month left, so I've got this card and another one in November and then 2 more in December. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I would also hope that you would all consider liking my video and giving me a thumbs up. Thanks a lot. Have a hopeful day. Bye bye.